Hey everyone, Judymay Murphy here. How are you doing? I had a million reasons why not to make this video today. All kinds of things. I've got a sty on my eye which isn't quite healed. I have just come back from training. I'm exhausted, but you know what? The amount of times that we have really great reasons, hundreds of them, not to do something, but we only need one really good reason to do it. And the really good reason is that you are going to hear something in the next 15 minutes or so that is going to radically change how you do life this time around on the planet. So here we go. The challenge that we have as people who are more sensitive, as HSPs, as introverts, as codependents, as spoonies, if it's that, it's just your physical health that is less than at the moment, then you know that it's not as easy for us. You know that the people who really push through and make incredible strides business-wise tend to be people not like us. And that's difficult to see. It's kind of tough when we don't have a lot of role models for people who are sensitive and kind and loving and a little bit more timid, a little bit more afraid, and aren't like people like that just aren't out there making it big. The people who are making it big are brash, they are pushy, they seem to not care what they say or who they offend. They seem to be the very opposite of us. We need to realize that we're never going to be like them in the ways we don't want to be like them. But when it comes to getting results, we really can. We can absolutely make this happen. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to look at the whole area of value. Why do we need to look at that? Well, because that's what money is about. Money is about giving value to the marketplace. So you give a product or a service and then you get money in return. And we'll be talking on later videos how you can sort of leverage your power and all the cool stuff that we're going to be able to do so that we don't have to go out there and push for it all the time. But in this call, we're going to be talking about why is it that we just don't make that kind of money? Why is it that we don't tend to succeed at that level? And it's all to do with value. It's to do with that core idea of value. And sometimes you'll go to a coach and you'll make a statement like, oh, I just feel like I don't deserve it. And then they'll sit and chat with you and they'll be like, oh, you do deserve it. And you're like, yeah, I'm a good person. I do deserve it. Okay, thanks very much. And on you'll go and you still won't make the money. Your business won't grow. Your product won't sell. And you're left thinking, really starting to believe that you're not made for this. You start to collect all these references that say, I'm not good at money, I'm not good at business, I'm not cut out for this. And you collect enough of those, and in your brain it solidifies into fact. It is not a fact. The fact is that you can learn anything, that you can change any behavior, you can start to do things in a different way at any stage in your life, and you can make this happen for yourself. I've done it for me. You can do it for you. And I've helped loads and loads of people. So trust me, this is not my first rodeo. So the stuff that I'm sharing with you is the stuff that over the last 17 years I've found most useful for getting people to make that shift. So this is not cosmetic stuff. So we've got to go a little bit deep. The first thing is we've got to realize that there are 3 different positions when it comes to value. Position number 1 is intrinsic value. That's the value that you just have as a person before you do anything. That's the value that as, codependent people who are more considerate, we tend to be able to see in others really, really well. We can see if someone's ill and they're completely incapable of looking after themselves, that they still are worth looking after. But we don't tend to then extend that same kindness to ourselves. So what is the challenge with intrinsic value? Why is it that we just don't feel that we have that in the same way that other people do? Well, it's because when we were kids, that sense of value, that sense of us just being enough just for being, wasn't adequately mirrored back to us by our parents. They would sort of look at us and they would sort of get annoyed or something, and we would get this idea that there's something wrong with us. And maybe it was that we would do things and we would maybe be praised, or maybe we wouldn't be praised for those things that we would do. And we would either link up in our heads this idea of, if I do things, then I'm valuable, or it doesn't matter what I do, I will never be valuable. But all these things play to the same idea of, I do not have intrinsic value. I do not have worth as a person. The second position then is the position of value to the world. This means value to your community, maybe your work community, but outside of the product or service that you're creating within that work. Just the kind of the value that you're bringing to people. So it might be something like that you're an environmentalist, or it might be that you're the person in your family who always remembers everybody's birthday, or it could be something like you are just the person that notices everybody when they need the door held open for them. It can be like on that simple a level, but it's right the way through you. You're really good at giving value to the world. If you can, if some of you are not in a position to do that, and that's cool too. We can just remember, we can always go back to that place of no matter what, we have intrinsic value. But for most of us, those of us who are codependent, we tend to overgive in that way. Why do we do that? Because that's what we confused with love. Our needs weren't being met when we were little, and so what we did was we found a way to try and earn it, to try and earn attention, and we started to think that things like attention and praise were love. Those became so fused in our head. The only times we got sort of parental light shining upon us was when we were doing stuff. So the idea of doing things and being praised and being noticed, or even just being not yelled at, or whatever it was for you as a kid, we got those happening at the same time so often that they became fused, and we started to learn that that's what love was, or that it's okay if that thing and love coexist. Anyway, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent. Let's keep back to the idea of what is value to the world. Value to the world is what you are expected to start to put in place as you get a little bit older, and what you're expected to do as a human. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing that we give value to the world. That's how it's meant to work. The challenge is that we overgive, that we are so busy giving to the world that there is nothing or very little available when it comes to us looking after us by going into the third position, which is value to the marketplace. And this is what money is. Money is giving value to the marketplace and then getting paid in return. That's how it works. But because we are so entrenched in this feeling of not being enough, what happens then is we feel like our product or service can't possibly be enough either. We get them all confused. We're boundaryless. We have these kind of porous ego boundaries, and we can't tell what's this and what's that. We can't sort of say, well, I feel badly about me, and over here my product is still valid and is still worth money. Instead, we sort of say, oh, it's not ready yet, or it's not good enough, or we pay the codependency tax by just giving discounts all over the place just in order to maybe feel all right about asking for the money. So you can see how we are confusing our feelings of not having intrinsic value with the fact or otherwise of our product or service having value. And maybe it's not valuable enough, but the point is this, that the discovery of that doesn't come from a feeling place. The discovery in the marketplace comes from testing something out in the marketplace. It comes from putting your product out there in a big enough way that people actually hear about it. And again, not going into a shame-based place of, I'll hide over here, and maybe, someone else will tell someone, and maybe if someone really, really needs it. No, we're not doing that. So we get it out there into the marketplace, and then we have a feeling of, well, it's either working or not working. But how often have you gone into this shame spiral when you've put a product or service or idea out there? Maybe it's an idea in a meeting if you work for someone else, or maybe it's, that you've asked for a raise, or maybe it's just that you put something up on Etsy or on eBay. The point is this, that you have to realize that now you're in the marketplace. And it doesn't matter if you're having a good day or a bad day around how you feel about yourself and how you feel your life is either a complete disaster or you're totally winning at this. Like it's nothing to do with that. And if you can compartmentalize, and we can learn how to do that, because I used to just be like, if I was having a bad day about one thing, I was having a bad day about everything. I would just take any emotion I was having and just paint it over, not just the entire day, but my entire existence. So we got to get used to not doing that. It's a bad 5 minutes. It's not a bad life, right? And also, it's a bad 5 minutes, and it's got nothing to do with what's happening over here in this quadrant, which is value to the marketplace. So if you find yourself doing things like over-preparing, or just feeling, just notice how you feel around asking for something. And a really, really great trick to get good at being okay, not being triggered into some shame spiraling awfulness every time you ask for money. Start to ask for things in the world first. So get good at that. And the cool thing is, whenever you get good in one quadrant, it helps the other. So you get good at saying to someone, oh, would you mind making my dinner tonight? Or, listen, I wonder, would you mind getting the teas this time? Or, hey, oh, I think I paid for the tea last time. I think it's your turn. Something as simple as that. If you can get good at that, at receiving and taking and just knowing what's yours in the world, then you can start to get in touch with the fact that, yeah, you know what, me too. I can see that person has worth, but you know what, I'm starting to see that I have worth too. You become more visible to yourself as you draw boundaries and as you have standards for how other people treat you. So you can see how one can affect the other. And then equally, as you're doing that, you can then get used to this feeling of taking, of I'll have that, thank you very much, that's mine. I'm going to give you this and I'm going to have this in return, rather than I'm going to give you this and I'm going to wait like a panting little puppy, hoping that maybe you'll give me something in return. That doesn't work. So equally, if you just work, first of all, on value to the marketplace, and then you've got more money and you just feel more calm about you and your existence, and you can sort of feel your intrinsic value, get in touch with that much better when you're not freaked out about money or freaked out about your career or business. Okay, so I'd like you to start to ask yourself as the day goes on, which quadrant am I in now? Which quadrant am I in? Am I purely in a feeling place, which has probably got more to do with intrinsic value? Am I really in an intellectual, more mechanical kind of place, which has got more to do with value to the marketplace? Or am I in a more interactive feeling and thinking place, which has probably got more to do with value to the world? But especially catch yourself at all times where you are overgiving and under-receiving. So in the first quadrant, you're overgiving and under-receiving when you are seeing somebody else's beauty but not your own. It's that simple. When you're able to look at someone in your yoga class and say, oh my God, she's so amazing, but you can't see how you're amazing for having gotten as far as you have. That's where you are overgiving and undertaking. And just switch it. And just a really cool thing that I and my clients find very useful is if you create a self, if you say, right, so for me, I would say, okay, which part of me feels hurt today? The 6-year-old. Okay, there's a 6-year-old Judymay that I need to take care of. So how can I love her? How can I take care of her? How can I, show her that she has value? So it's not just about sitting around and meditating until that you get that click. It's often about things like radical self-care will put you in touch with your intrinsic value. So from that then, a way that in the world, this is the easiest way to know because you do it all the time and you've got your special ways of doing it, is when you are overgiving in the world, feelings of resentment come up because you feel like I've given and given and given and look, I've got nothing. Well, that's not how the world works. Okay, so we've got to just be more practical about this, and we've got to just stop. I had a client I was speaking to the other day, and he was just over giving to his wife all the time. He was doing all the work inside the house as well as outside the house, and he was feeling really resentful. I said to him, that is key. But the thing is, she doesn't have to change. She doesn't have to start to do all the things that you want her to do. She's, an individual who gets to make her own decisions as an adult. And the only thing that you can change is, what are you going to do and not do? So he was feeling kind of resentful about making her breakfast. I said, stop making her breakfast. It's that simple. Stop overgiving to the world. How do we know we're overgiving to the world? When we feel resentful. So when we're not in a good position when it comes to our intrinsic value, we usually feel a sense of shame and just yuckiness and we're not good enough. When we are overgiving and under-receiving in the world, we usually feel resentment. Then when we get to the marketplace, what happens there? Well, we feel frustrated usually. We feel frustrated and we feel panicked because we think, I'm never going to be able to give enough in order to be able to get what I need. And all these three kind of feelings are linked, but work out in the day, which feeling am I feeling here? Am I feeling frustrated? Am I feeling like less than and ashamed in position one, or am I feeling resentful in position two? So let's come up with a scenario. Let's imagine that you're not getting your work done, and you're just feeling, at first you just kind of say, I just feel awful. Okay, let's always work out, what does awful mean for you in this moment. So you say, I feel really angry. Great. Angry toward whom? And you say, well, I feel really angry toward my cousin. Why? Well, it's not his fault, because that's what we do as codependents, right? We try and make it all lovely. It's not his fault because, no. Why do you feel angry towards your cousin? Well, he asked me to help him move his stuff, and it took half a day, and I really wanted that half a day to blah blah blah. Great. What have you learned? You learned that you gave something that you didn't have to freely give, because when you freely give, you don't feel that resentment. You just feel joy. You're just like, yeah, let me do that. All right. So I spent some time this afternoon helping out a friend doing some photographs. Felt great about it because I had that time and I was prepared for it, and I was giving from a place of surplus. I wasn't giving from a place of lack. So that might be key. And then you might say, oh, also I'm just really frustrated. Why are you frustrated? I'm frustrated because the sales funnel isn't right, because I don't have it set up right, that the people are, after they buy this, that they're then buying this. Okay, let's do that. Let's tweak that. And then if it's not one or the other of those, if it's just a feeling of, I just feel like it's never going to work. Those are the kind of statements that we make when we're in a shame-bound place. I feel like it's never going to work. And you don't even want to do the why. It's just not. It's just because that's how it is, and just that's how I am, and I'm terrible and the world is terrible. If we're in that place, what we need to do is we need to realize we're not valuing ourselves. We're not esteeming ourselves. That's what self-esteem is an action. And when you esteem the self-esteem is not a feeling. The feeling is self-love, and that comes at the end of the line. That comes after you've done the action, after you've done the radical self-care, after you've taken care of yourself, after you've said to yourself, what do I need right now? Do I need to eat? Do I need to nap? Do I need to, reach out to somebody? Do I need some peace and quiet away from everybody? Do I need to assert myself in this way? What do I need? And when you've done that, then you have more strength in order to go and be the best person that you can be, out giving value to the marketplace. And it's amazing how it gets rid of that feeling. It just realizing this means that you can't get into that loop that we so often get into of, but I'm such a good person. Why is my life not working out? I'm such a good person. Well, for a start, are you such a good person, or are you just an overgiver and you've given yourself the identity of such a good person because that makes you feel better about not feeling intrinsic worth, right? Because often people who are overgiving are actually quite stressful to the people around them, because they always feel that they owe the codependent. Or they owe the person who has CPTSD, or they owe the overgiver something, and they can get quite stressed. They're like, well, I didn't really want them to do that. I could have done that myself. So, let's, at a later date, we'll look at that idea of, why do you need to be seen as such a good person? And, but now you'll see that even if that were true, which it isn't, but even if that were true, that you're giving all this great value to the world, then it doesn't translate. Like, the money happens in the marketplace. The money doesn't happen with Intrinsic, otherwise we would all have the same. The money doesn't happen with the people who give to the world. It doesn't happen in the world place, because equally then, you'd have way more than most millionaires, right? You can relate to that idea. The money happens in the marketplace, and we've got to keep ourselves strong and steady in positions 1 and 2, in how we feel about ourselves and how we interact with the world, in order that we can really kick ass, because there's no reason why we shouldn't, except we get to position number 3, we get to the marketplace so beaten up and so exhausted and so demoralized that we just don't have the strength to push forward. So just start to ask yourself, is this a position 1 thing, a position 2 thing, a position 3 thing? And you'll be amazed at how suddenly things will become clearer, and you'll know what to do. You'll know how to look after yourself, either by self-esteem, by radical self-care, or by setting boundaries, stopping giving when you don't have it to give, or making sure that you feel like you are not resentful because you're receiving in equal measure? Or is it a position 3 thing? And it's very rarely for us a position 3 thing. Position 3, the marketplace stuff, is easy when we have the energy, when we haven't depleted ourselves in those other places. So have fun with those ideas, and I will check in with you very, very soon. Until then, take care. Bye now.